My name is Karen McKenna, and we're sitting here today with Jeane Manning, and we're going to have a talk about breakthrough energy. And Jeane is the co-author of the book Breakthrough Power that she co-authored with Joel Garvin. She has an honors BA in sociology. She's got broad experience in multiple sectors. She's had roles as a social worker, a reporter, counselor, publicist, radio commentator, and even a newspaper editor role. She's currently on the board of advisors of the New Energy Movement, and she's currently writing another book on a similar topic. So, Jeane, I wanted to just, maybe you could talk a little bit about the book you're writing and who you're writing it with. And
okay, with a woman this time. Susan Manowich has a master's in organizational psychology or something like that. She's more in the Ivy League circles back east.
Oh, great.
And kitty corner across the continent from her.
Yeah.
And we met through the New Energy Movement connections.
Yeah.
And so our book is titled Hidden Energy.
Oh, great.
It's work in progress at the moment, but we're really excited about the perspective of now, what's happening now.
Great.
It's bigger than just technology, way bigger. It's about an opportunity for a new renaissance of the way people can relate to electricity and technology in a worldview that includes consciousness and what really matters.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'm finding like whenever you start to add that variable of consciousness into any conversations, it just, the conversation expands exponentially. So I mean, that was quite a surprise to me too, so I'm glad you're...
Well, Joel Garvin, my previous co-author, and I had a slogan that you have to have a consciousness revolution before you can have an energy revolution.
Yes, definitely.
Had that on a banner.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Yeah.
You can't bring in powerful new energy technologies without responsibility.
Right.
And
Agreed.
so human family just has to take it up a notch in
Right.
terms of being responsible for what we do with technology.
Yes, absolutely.
Biggie.
And I think some of the technology that you're talking about is representing more a quantum leap rather than an incremental step. So it's wonderful. So let's just start at the basics then for people who really haven't any experience in this. So what is breakthrough power?
Okay, so it's a breakthrough not only in technology but also in the way that we look at the world, whether we look at it in terms of a scarcity paradigm in which that's what we've been living with and encouraged to believe in for 100 years or more.
Yeah.
But the reason that that's a lie is that there are proven prototypes of inventions that tap into background energy of the universe. And so we can have and we are actually living in an abundance universe, in a loving universe, but we just don't get that message. Whereas when the new technologies are allowed to come out into the public, really in a big visible way, then our hope is that people will start realizing that we don't have to fight each other, we don't have to compete, because there is enough for everybody.
Right.
I mean, we still have to take care of our planet, not be the wildly consuming plastic this, plastic that society, and definitely take care of our water resources. That clean water is really a scarce item right now. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we've used energy technologies that have ruined natural water sources.
Right.
And I mean, this is what the people at Standing Rock, standing up to protect,
for sure.
There's no reason to be fouling rivers and lakes with fossil fuels. It's absolutely, for years now, there's been no reason, but the public just hasn't heard about the breakthrough inventions.
Right.
And they, so they're a quantum leap. They're not incremental improvements, as you said, to what we have. I mean, we're all in favor of the sustainable energy technologies that are becoming popular now. The emerging solar has gone down in price to a point where it's definitely proven to be. Germany has shown that you can change over to it. And wind power is, well, maybe not quite as low cost. You're looking at these monster wind towers, but they are not new. They're improvements on things that
Yeah, they're incremental
humans have been
changes,
doing
yes.
for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
Windmills in Australia forever.
Mhm.
So we're not really all about excitement about technology for technology's sake,
Right.
but rather if we look at this emerging science that's behind
Mhm.
the new breakthrough energy technologies, then it really opens up philosophically
Oh, yes.
the way the human family can relate to each other.
Yes.
We don't have to be fighting for what's underneath some other country's sands in the desert.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure.
So it's a huge change.
Yeah, I like to call it like part of the new paradigm. You know, where that's a big component of moving to the new paradigm. In my view, anyway.
Right, you're working on a part of it that's
Yeah.
very necessary to bringing in new energy technologies,
Right.
actually.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, getting out of the scarcity mindset for sure.
Mhm.
So how would breakthrough energy change our world?
Well, imagine that you can be in downtown Vancouver and you can take a deep breath and close your eyes and pretend like you're out in a forest
Mhm.
somewhere, because the air is so clean.
Right.
And you know that, say if you live in a part of Vancouver where there's a lot of truck traffic, or whatever the big transport,
Right, yeah.
the next technology will be, that you can grow your veggies in the backyard without worrying that the soil will be contaminated
Oh,
by
of course,
the
yeah.
emissions from fossil fuels.
Right.
And waterways can be cleaned up, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the new energy technologies that plasma-based can clean up
Mhm.
what we've polluted. And so polluted waterways can be turned into what they used to be.
Right. Great.
Clean.
Yeah.
So there's the aspect of,
Environmental aspect, yeah.
right, rejuvenating planet Earth.
Yeah.
And there'll be prosperity because countries won't have to spend huge chunks of their budget, or actually majority of some budgets, on defense, which
Yeah.
basically fighting over oil.
Right.
They won't have to be importing oil.
Mm-hmm.
And the healthcare costs that a country is paying
Yes.
will be way down, because you won't have, say, in the inner city, children breathing the fossil fuel,
Right.
and getting
Yeah, there's been a huge
asthma,
increase in asthma.
and there's just a lot of others. A lot of studies have shown that air pollution definitely causes big health expenses to
Right.
the planet. So there will be money available for retraining the people
Right.
that are currently in the coal and,
Right.
and oil pipeline industries.
Sure.
They don't have to figure that this is the end of jobs if
For
they
sure.
if they can't build pipelines
Right.
for oil, but rather there would be prosperity available for creating jobs that do something that people want to do, like
Yeah.
clean up their environment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. It seems to me that we've fallen into that trap. It's like, well, this is a lot of policy decisions that I see, they're made, some pipeline decisions that we've had here in BC. They're made because, well, this is the only possible alternative. And once you start to, well, when I started to do the research, I was just like, it's not, but that's definitely the mindset that, probably 99% of the population has. So,
Right, because it's a message that comes out
yeah,
repeatedly from
Yeah.
the decision makers and,
Right.
and the media that parrot what they say.
yeah,
One of the things that is close to my heart is clean water and also land that can grow food. So I happen to be really feeling really strongly about the propaganda that says that we have to have another dam on a
Right.
beautiful river that could be, that whole river valley, I'm talking about the Peace River Valley in
Right.
northern BC,
right,
could be growing food
right,
for a large chunk of our population in our province.
right,
But it's not being grown there because everyone knows that, it might be flooded, it's probably going to
Yeah.
be flooded by this
Right.
dam. So whenever people talk about hydropower as clean energy, it's just
Yeah.
kind of grates on
Yes,
my nerves,
yeah.
because if you look at the land that's flooded, that is no longer useful. In fact,
Mhm.
what happens is you know, the mercury emissions that are created when the vegetation underground or under the water rots.
Oh, okay. Right.
It's disastrous
Right.
for the environment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as women, we want to look at what our children and their children
absolutely.
are going to inherit in the way
For sure.
of
sure.
healthy food growing areas,
Mm-hmm.
healthy water, healthy
Yeah.
water and clean air.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, we're definitely. I think we're at this point where it's kind of some sort of, we have to get this sort of tipping point so that we go to the positive. Or, you know, I spent about a year researching all these things, and I'm like, wow, like my kids are either going to turn into cyborgs, or we're not going to have a planet to live on because we're going to, you know, kill it. And I think that was the one thing that made me think, okay, I need to do something, because like really, this is for our children and our grandchildren. You know, it's like it's no longer enough just to make more money to give them money, because, you know, just you need a planet to live on. So yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's just move into what types of inventions are you aware of, and have you seen any of these, or what sort of different categories, and what's your experience with?
Okay, well, the question, have I seen any?
Yeah.
Over the time that I've been involved in this field, I have seen. Okay, I looked at my experts to tell me what I'm seeing,
Right, yes.
because I'm not the one with the PhD
Right,
in a science topic.
Sure.
So if when I saw a demonstration by, for example, Dr. Dennis Cravens
Mm-hmm.
of the Patterson Power Cell, this was
Mhm.
years ago,
Yeah.
but and it was in a room full of engineers and
Right.
electricians and scientists, and and they told me this is more output than input of
Yeah.
energy.
Over Unity. Yeah.
Okay, you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And some of the inventions that I've seen are in smaller private laboratories, and I'm trusting the people whose credentials I've
Yeah.
known and known them personally, their integrity over
Right.
the years.
Yeah.
So I have seen other varieties of inventions. So you're asking kind of what varieties?
Yeah. What types of inventions are you aware of?
Yeah.
Like, what are the different categories? If you could just put them
Okay.
into.
One of the ones that's kind of big right now is the buzzword plasma.
Yeah.
So plasma based. What used to be talked as water as fuel is more talked about as plasma based now,
Okay.
because people have been working on different ways to do electrolysis, which is breaking up water into hydrogen and oxygen,
Right.
so you can have
Right.
a hydrogen power source. But really, no matter how they tweaked it and used resin and different techniques,
Mm-hmm.
it really was basically a no-win. But what people are doing now is creating reactions that involve plasma, and the theorists in this field
Mhm.
are explaining that one model of what's going on that puts out more output than what seems to be
Yeah.
input could be microscopic ball lightning happening.
Okay.
And that would be at the point at which the background energy of the universe enters in.
Right. Okay.
Because it has been, shown in some science that even spark plug events in the spark is a place where background energy comes in.
Right.
So don't want to go on too
Yeah. So it's
too
plasma.
technical, but
yeah.
I'm just saying that there are explanations that are coming out, and like in the case of Dr. Randall Mills, it may turn out that his explanation is not the one that stands the test of time,
Right.
but the technology that
Right.
he has developed will.
Right.
The man is almost ready for commercialization. He is ready.
Yeah.
He just needs the funding to for the big expensive step of taking something from an engineered, proven prototype
Right.
to
Bring it to market.
a marketable
Yeah.
product that passes all the safety tests and is
Yeah, for
reliable and acts the same way every time in every
Right.
one that's built. So mass manufacturing process is a huge expensive
Yeah,
step,
sure,
but he's
yeah.
already shown that the components of what he's built is what he calls the sun cell, which
Mhm.
isn't really a solar cell, but
Yeah.
it's plasma based, that all the parts are available off the shelf parts.
Oh, really?
And so that this is the company called Brilliant Light Power.
Okay.
And I don't understand why the so-called experts aren't mentioning it when they do their predictions of what we're going to need in the future and
Right.
how soon we can get off of fossil fuels.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, other varieties. My favorite is the magnetic base.
Right, okay.
And that's
I've seen one of those, yeah, yeah.
That's where I came in back in 1981 when I met an inventor who, he thought he had it nailed, but he was kind of overestimating what he had. But he was on the right track of working with magnetism and asking, how can we do this differently? How can we build a motor generator that doesn't have the same geometry that has been used since the beginning of motors and generators? Why do we have to do things the same way? Because when you do them that way, the standard way, then you always have something called back electromotive force, which is the force that fights against the forward movement of the rotor, the turning of the rotor. And you'll always have that. It's just a law of physics. We're doing things that way.
Right.
But they're doing things differently.
Yeah.
And different geometries, but also recycling the electricity before it gets thrown away.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Just to put it simply.
Right.
And so I love that technology the best, that approach, because it's something that can't be weaponized. It's just, as far as I can see, maybe they could run their tanks on it, but they couldn't create a weapon.
Right.
And then there are scientists working on zero-point energy based. I guess that gets more into the where standard science is. So there's a category called low energy nuclear reactions, which is a horrible name. I think they need a PR expert to help them rename that field, because the word nuclear just turns so many of us away
for sure.
when we've had experience with nuclear fission. But they're just referring to what goes on at the level of the nucleus.
Yes, right, yeah.
It's not fission. It's not putting off any dangerous radioactivity or dangerous. So that's the field. Okay, they're now, LENR, that's what we're calling it now, but it started off being called cold fusion, which was a mistake too, because it wasn't really fusion, it seems. That's another field where the PhD scientists kind of gathered in, those who were real scientists and didn't get turned away by the opinions of their peers. If they saw something, these maverick scientists, they weren't deterred by the standard viewpoint and the pressure to conform. They, even if they had, and they did usually have to fund it themselves, they carried on the research. And they were ridiculed all the way along.
For sure.
Goes with
the territory.
Yeah.
There's something about being, more than 10 years ahead, that it's a bit of a different road than if you're just a few months ahead or something.
Right, just incremental improvement.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
in the club.
You're in the club, that's right. Yeah, that's great. So do scientists understand free energy? I know you touched on it a little bit, but in generally, why hasn't this, or where do you think the science is at, and what role does science and what's taught in universities have?
Okay, well, there's a couple of different levels at which it is talked about. Now there's what's called zero-point energy. That's an accepted term in physics journals. And there are physics journals articles that refer to something called Casimir forces, which is the way that some of the experiments have tapped into this zero-point energy. But what I have come to question, just from talking to a lot of people, is whether zero-point energy might be something just referring to the effects rather than the causes. Those people dealing with the magnetic technologies are talking about primal energy, background energy in the universe. Like there's a scientist in India, Paramahansa Tiwari. He's he built nuclear power plants for the government in India.
Oh, wow.
He's very respected
Yeah.
scientist. But in his spare time, because he had been always a Vedic scholar, scholar
Okay, yes,
of
yeah.
the ancient writings, he looked at things in terms of this, what he called space energy, which is what the ancients called the ether.
Right, right.
That name carries a lot of
Yes.
baggage, but
Yeah.
it's known by different names. And so in his spare time, he did experiments to see if it was possible to tap into that. And so they're talking about a more primal background energy, whereas this 0-point energy, I use the analogy of, you don't say that wind power comes from the fluttering leaves on those trees out there.
Right, yeah.
They're the effect of the
Right,
wind.
right.
And so what you tap into is the wind.
Right.
not-
Okay, so the next question, do scientists understand free energy? What gets taught in universities? What role does that play? What's in journals, that type of thing?
The term free energy itself is like fingernails on a blackboard to
Right.
anybody in engineering or physics.
Yes.
Universities. But the fact of tapping into some background energy, when it's called 0-point energy, it's recognized in the physics journals and in the universities.
Mm-hmm.
But the talking about a more primal background energy, that's definitely not taught.
Right.
So the experiments that have to do with 0-point energy and little effects in Casimir cavities, they call them, well, they're pretty small amount of power output, and
Right.
so that's used as proof that, well, yes, you can tap into 0-point energy, but you can't do any serious work with it
Oh, I
because it's
see.
just a small
Okay.
effect.
Right.
However, the people whose model of what they might possibly be doing, what might possibly be creating the excess output,
Right.
electrical energy, when their model includes what used to be called the ether,
Right.
the primal energy,
Right.
they are getting kilowatts of power, such as Dr. Paramahansa Tiwari.
Right.
Excuse me, he's not a doctor, but
Yeah.
he's definitely a distinguished scientist
Yeah.
in India,
Yeah.
Tiwari. So, no, it's not the ability to really run serious appliances
Mhm.
and really do something serious with background energy is not being recognized
Right.
in the universe. However, individual scientists from the universities
Right. On their spare time.
in their spare time
Yeah.
or in their summer vacation going to a conference,
Right.
they do definitely talk about, and they do experiments
Right.
in the back room or in their home lab,
Yeah,
whatever they have
big
to
garage
do.
experiments. I gotta get my hands on one of those garage experiments. Okay, so next question is, are there any barriers to getting breakthrough energy into the world?
Oh boy,
The big topic.
the biggest barrier, when I've gone to these conferences where the scientists are just really talking freely about what they're up against. For example, there was one in Seattle called the Foundation for the Future conference. It was just a closed think tank sort of thing, and they said not only lack of funding but disbelief is the biggest barrier.
Right.
That when they tell people, whether it's the media or their peers at the university, what they're doing, there's this disbelief because all the educated people are so conditioned to what's impossible.
Right.
Not having investigated
Right.
what exactly these people are doing.
Right.
And there's reasons why they're not investigating that have to do with psychology.
Right, yes. Cognitive dissonance.
Psychology and financial security.
For sure, yeah.
Disbelief, lack of funding, even lack of funding to an organization. Most professional groups have a professional organization that supports what they're doing
Right.
and provides standards and
Mhm.
agreed upon terminology and
Yeah, that's a good point.
monitors their members'
Sure.
ethics and everything.
Yeah.
New energy scene is what my co-author Susan calls the Wild West.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
Right
that's a
now.
really good point.
And
Sort of
she,
a lack of a board, advisory
Susan
board.
Nanowich is the president of New Energy Movement now
Yeah.
in the U.S. and working with a global group called the Global Breakthrough Energy
Right.
Movement
Yes.
to put together today's version of what's needed in an organization.
Right, a professional board of oversight. Yeah, something like that.
Well, also an educational organization to bring in the public.
Yeah.
Because when these scientists were talking about disbelief, it was also about, they figured if they get enough public support, then it can't be hidden anymore.
Yeah.
It can't be swept under the rug.
Exactly.
And the public support is small because people don't know about it.
Right, yeah.
So, you know, they value people like you who are going to bring out information, and they appreciate it
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so again, it kind of comes back to that. It's a consciousness shift, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the first step in consciousness is education, and yeah, great. To your knowledge, are there any barriers that are specific to Canada, or have you seen anything that's kind of like made you go, wait a minute, why did that happen? This is Canada. These things don't happen here. That's my view.
We're no different.
Yeah.
We maybe feel a little freer than we do in some other places,
Sure.
but according to the stories I've been told
Mhm.
by inventors,
These are
it
Canadian
does-
inventors?
Hmm?
Canadian inventors, or?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that there have been incidents that have given them the message that what they're doing is not wanted by
Mm,
someone who can pull some strings and,
Right.
and cause some problems.
right.
And the problems that they've been caused, including a fire in somebody's laboratory after he'd just shown some people through, and the evidence of the fire was that somebody had sprayed something on the wall
Okay.
to
Spark it, yeah.
cause the fire. And another inventor who was putting out energy efficiency products. This wasn't, you know, a free energy
Yeah.
device, but it was definitely a disruptive technology to the fossil fuel
Sure.
interest because it's the efficiency
Right.
of the energy efficiency product.
Yeah.
And his shipments were repeatedly trashed or disappeared en route. So his
Oh,
customers were dropping away and giving him a bad name because they weren't receiving what they paid for.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so these sorts of incidents I can't check out and I can't provide you proof because
Yeah.
whoever did them didn't leave a calling card saying this is your friendly
Right.
neighborhood.
Well, I guess you've been in this movement for over 20 years, I guess.
Over 30 years.
30 years. Okay, so you've got 30 years of looking at things and noticing that there's a pattern or an anomalous pattern where something just seems to happen to get in the way of different things.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're
Not a
saying?
lot of stories
Yeah,
in Canada,
but, yeah.
but I, you know, there were at least
Yeah.
3 that came from people whom I
You've
know.
had trust relationships with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And then the last question I wanted to have, what can the average person do to help bring us forward? So I just feel if we're looking at, you know, the future of our children and our grandchildren, that this is one of the most important shifts that we need to make, in my opinion. So what can the average person do who maybe doesn't have a lot of education on the subject or doesn't, you know, have a lot of time? What could they do to just help do there a little bit?
Well, first, learn everything you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And find some authorities that you trust to help you discriminate between what you're reading on the internet and what might be actually going on.
Right.
Because there are scams out on the internet, unfortunately.
Right.
Every time there's something that starts to get into the public consciousness and that are something that so valuable that people will pay money for.
Sure.
Now there are these streaming videos that you can't really nail down. You can't stop them to have a deeper look. You can't nail down who's behind them.
Right.
But yet they're a mixture of true stories.
Right.
And I've even seen like for example, a photograph I took of Tawari from India and a scientist from Europe at a conference in Hanover, Germany.
Mhm.
In 1987, I saw that on one of these scam
Oh, photo
videos,
you took.
like they lifted
Yeah.
it somewhere off the internet, and they include references to Tesla and
Yeah.
to real other real inventors
Right.
mixed in. So unfortunately, when people want something so badly as they want to get off the electric grid or the high
Right.
power
Right.
bills, so many people have spent their money on that way, and that all gets it badly. So
Right. Yeah.
find some sources. The New Energy Movement will be doing those services. They don't have the website up yet. They're going to take
Okay.
the time and do it right.
Okay.
And
So then eventually the newenergymovement.com would be
it probably
referenced?
be .org,
.org,
or it
yeah.
might even be another title, because they will be amalgamated with the Global Breakthrough
Right,
Energy
okay.
Movement. But if you look up New Energy Movement or Global Breakthrough Energy Movement,
Okay. Those are
their
good places where you can get some
website maybe
information that's been
2 or 3 months from now.
Yeah.
It will begin, because it's all volunteer.
Right.
And this is another way where people could help, is to donate, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just volunteers that are doing all this.
Right.
I mentioned the need for a professional organization.
Right.
Usually they have at least one paid staff.
Yeah.
you know.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Whereas, even Susan as the president is just volunteering all her time, so they
Right.
have to fit it in with other obligations they have.
Right.
And so if there were enough funding to hire somebody, then they could do
Right.
so much more, so
Right.
much faster.
Right.
And the same with supporting inventors. If you do your research and maybe meet somebody in your own region, find out about somebody in your own
Right.
region through people whose credentials you can trust,
Yeah.
and then be supportive of these inventors, because
Right.
they have, as common occurrence, spent all their family's money,
Yeah.
and they're on maxed out credit cards and everything
Right.
in order to buy the magnets or electronics or
Yeah.
get machine parts for their inventions. So because of the lack of support, they don't get support from the highly praised government programs that purport to be willing to fund breakthrough projects.
Right.
Those programs fund anything that's still safely an incremental improvement
Yeah.
in our experience.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything that's what the vested interests consider disruptive technology
Right. Disruptive. Yeah.
getting funding from a government source.
Yeah.
That may change, I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So just in closing, so the name of just give us the name of the new book that you're writing.
Hidden Energy,
Yeah. And your co-author.
Susan Manowich.
Great. Okay. Okay. Great. Well, I want to thank you for your time so much today and opening up your home, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you,
Okay.
Karen.
Thank you.